Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountain. He sat down, and his disciples came to him. He taught them, saying, "Happy are people whose lives are harassed, because they are righteous, because the kingdom of heaven is theirs." Daniel 1:1-18. Daniel decided that he wouldn't pollute himself with the king's rations or the royal wine, and he appealed to the chief official in hopes that he wouldn't have to do so. Now God had established faithful loyalty between David and the chief official. But the chief official said to Daniel, "I'm afraid of my master, the king, who has mandated what you are to eat and drink. What will happen if he sees your faces looking thinner than the other young men in your group? The king will have my head because of you." So Daniel spoke to the guard whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. "Why not test your servants for 10 days? You could give us a diet of vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance to the appearance of the young men who eat the king's food. Then deal with your servants according to what you see." The guard decided to go along with their plan and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days, they looked better and healthier than all of the young men who were eating the king's food. So the guard kept taking away their rations and the wine they were supposed to drink and gave them vegetables instead. And God gave knowledge, mastery of all literature, and wisdom to these 4 men. Daniel himself gained understanding of every type of vision and dream. When the time came to review the young men as the king had ordered, the chief official brought them before Nebuchadnezzar.
May God add his blessing to the reading of his word today. Let's pray this morning, shall we? Gracious and holy God, we give you thanks for this day, for the blessings that you bestow upon us, the ways in which you treat us kindly, even though others mistreat us at times. We pray that we might be sacrificial for a world that is laboring to come to know of your love. Bless the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts. Might it be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. Happy are those who live lives of harassment because they have done the right thing. The kingdom of heaven is theirs. Other translations say, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness." Other translations might say, "Blessed are those who live according to God's word and are troubled." I thought this week, how is it I've been harassed for the gospel? I mean, really. In my life, am I really struggling or suffering because of it? Am I persecuted in any way? Am I really blessed? And I thought about that for a minute. Where in my life have I been called to take a stand? To do the right thing even though it might not be popular? To teach somebody something about the love of Christ? When has someone really ever labeled me a Jesus freak? And I thought back in my employment with a company before I became pastor. One day I went to enter to my review, to have my performance review done. Always a happy time in the life of a company. You've been there too. On this particular day, I was told right at the beginning of my review that my manager had just 10 minutes before starting my review resigned from the company. That he had followed the vice president that had left and taken a job in Iowa. And part of his commitment in moving to a vice presidential position in the company was that he had committed that there were 5 people he was sure would follow him to Iowa. I was the top of his list. Now, I'm not here to recruit, but he spent the next 20 minutes recruiting me. And I kind of chuckled about it. And then I pointed something out to him. I said, you know, or maybe you don't know, but there's a rumor floating around the department. Actually, it's more than a rumor. A co-worker of mine who works under your care and supervision has indicated that the 2 of you have been having an affair behind your spouse's back for a while. So I have to ask the question. Are you the type of person that I would want to follow and put my family's security, financial security, and means in the way? He went on, well, in that moment, he almost jumped across the table at me and said, "Don't you ever repeat that again." My eyes grew big. I said, "I really kind of thought you were going to deny it. Now you're just threatening me." He went on to tell me all the great things about Iowa and the company and the fact that I would have a senior manager level position, a promotion from where I was at in my corporate world, and maybe in that it would be called an assistant VP. I mean, who doesn't want that on their card? But I was asked to follow him. Now, if there's anyone here from Iowa, I'm not dogging you, but that just didn't sound attractive. It certainly wasn't, you know, to me, a sacrifice I think I was willing to have my family make. And then I said to him, you know, I just want to emphasize again what we learned in leadership, that you're not really a leader unless people would be willing to follow you into the uncomfortable, and frankly, I'm just not willing to do that. And then he said these words to me that I laughed about this week. He said, "Joe, it's not as though we can live our lives according to the truths in a book. I'm not sure if that book was this book, or Harry Potter, or Dianetics, or the encyclopedia. But I wondered if this is the book he talked about." Do we believe that? Do we believe that it's not as though our lives can be lived according to the truths in a book? Because if we believe that, we should just fold up the tent and move the circus on down the road. But if we believe that this book can make all the difference in the lives, how much are we willing to pay or to suffer for it? It's not as though we're suffering, right? I mean, how is it that we can suffer? Then I thought, in what ways has my faith made a difference? Interestingly enough, in our text today, God is already working in the relationship that exists between Daniel and the chief officer of the court, the king's court, the people's court. God had established faithful loyalty, but even what Daniel was asking was way too much. So David turns to a guard and says, "Hey, man, please don't make me eat of the king's meat or drink of his wine." Now, some conjecture out there is it's only that. Is that maybe the beef or the meat and the wine were offered as sacrifices to foreign gods, and so, you know, that's a no-no in Israel's book. But for whatever reason, Daniel felt it was right to do so. And he asked those around him not to make him suffer the wrath of his God for it. Interesting, isn't it? And then he says this, why not test my servants against the others? Let us compare our appearance to the appearance of them. And then I thought to myself, wow, what if that were a requirement for Christianity? Compare our appearance to the appearance of those who do not know God. Is there a difference? Am I living a life set apart in some way? The old adage goes, if we were put on trial for being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict us? Did you pray this morning, God, let my appearance, the way that people understand me, be different than that of others? That people might see my faith. That people might see my power. That only comes from you. How is your life different since you received Christ? Friends, if it isn't, then we need to get the quick change going. We need to put on the new clothes. The clothes of righteousness. If we aren't willing to stand in the gap, even though it's unpopular, then what are we doing? You know, I was told in my first seminary class that when people find out you're in seminary, they're going to treat you differently. Those who are close to you might draw away. And then there are those who are distant from you that might draw near you. I'm sure every one of us sitting there who heard that comment had the thought, yeah, but not me. My roommate from college and I catch up once or twice a year. We had not done so for a while, and about 3 years into seminary, I called him, and he was very distant. And I said, all right, Terry, what's going on here? And he said, well, I got your Christmas letter. This was like May, we were having this conversation. You got my Christmas letter. What was in the Christmas letter? Did I dog you? So I don't get it. Well, it said in your letter that you are studying to be a Protestant minister. Oh, he's Catholic. We scared the bejesus out of him. He and I haven't talked since that conversation. I went back to my first day at seminary. It's not uncommon to experience the clergy bubble. It wasn't my first. It probably won't be my last. But as much as I miss the relationship, is it really all that sacrificial? Maybe when you came to Christ, there were people in your own family who said, ooh, well, look at the Holy One when you come to Thanksgiving dinner. Blessed are you. God is near you when that happens. Have you ever been called to take a stand for something that's not right? And did you do so because faith told you so? Have you ever been threatened? Physical harm? Because you're a Christian? Have you ever had to sacrifice? Have you ever had to give up and give over in an uncomfortable way? Have you ever had to be willing to give your life? Our early church martyrs did. Why? Because they believed wholeheartedly in the thought, in the belief, in the sayings of Jesus when he said, in this book, there's no greater love than this, than one give their life for another. And he did it. He gave his life for you and for me. And friends, if that doesn't make the difference, I'm not sure what. what would you be willing to die for? Isn't it to protect the ones you love? Isn't that the first thing that comes to mind? Man, you threaten my family. You're going to have to deal with me. Christ said that on the cross. You threaten my children. You're going to have to deal with me. And so did his saints who walked before him. Martyrs who were dragged into the Colosseum because of their belief and their faith in the earliest of days, and those who graciously never fought back. I've never been to the Colosseum, but I was shown a picture of it today, yesterday in a training class. A picture that reminded me that now, in many places around the Colosseum, there are crosses, reflecting those who gave their lives so beautifully. The pastor, who was very passionate about the subject, said, you know, I wonder if we could go back and tell the saints who one day just saw that as a stone building, as a monument to Caesar. He said this. He said, I wonder if they would know that one day we named our kids Luke, John, Peter, Mary, Paul, and named our dogs Caesar. His joke, not mine. But I love it. I'm going to use it. If one day we could tell those saints who sacrificed so much that their sacrifice would be a symbol to the world, that the place where they lost their very lives would now become a monument for them and not for Caesar. I wonder if we could go back and tell the disciples that their sacrifice, literally martyrdom, for every one of them would have meant the fastest spread of the gospel in the world. That lives and hearts would be changed to the point that today Christianity represents 1 in 3 around the world. But sadly enough, 1 in 10 in our neighborhoods. Friends, I think it's time we got sacrificial again. It's time we got that uncomfortable itch, the rash, the willingness to be, roughed up a little bit, persecuted a little bit. It's not bad news. It's good news. It's good news that someone else is going to come to Christ. I know I'm running over, but I have one more thought. In my last church, they had built the church on 9.5 acres of woods, hoping that one day the church would flourish and grow so much we would need that property to expand. We hired some Amish workers to come in and clean out some of the woods and harvest the hardwoods for us so nature could continue to do its cycle and we could make some money that we paid off a mission fund. And as the Amish workers went through and started cleaning things up, it made the neighborhood that abutted our wooded area nervous. On one particular Friday on my day off, this neighbor showed up at our house, or showed up at the church. I want to talk to the pastor about what's going on in this field. She said, well, it's his day off. He'll be here on Monday. No, I got to talk to him today. I want to stop this from going on. She said, well, I'm sorry, it's the pastor's day off. And he said, I know him. He walks his dogs in my neighborhood. And I know where the parsonage is. I'll go see him. So early that morning, I'm sure as the Amish were hooking their horses to their equipment, he shows up at my door. He pulls a checkbook out and he says, Pastor, what will it take? How much will it be that I could write a check to you that you would sell the property right behind me to me so that I could stop the harvest of the woods? You see, I purchased this lot because it was a wooded lot. And I said to him, friend, are you a man of faith? He said, yeah, I'm Catholic. I could tell. Don't try and convert me. I get it. I'm a Catholic, and I said, well, one day we need to leave. We're going to be together, right? We We purchased this land because we wanted to expand down the road. We have this hope that our ministry is going to reach this town, this community, this county so well that we're going to need to expand. And I'm not sure what that's going to mean, but you did not purchase a wooded lot. You purchased a lot that backs up to woods that I hope one day won't be there. He said, well, I do. Just tell me how much, what the cost is. And I said, I hope our ministry is so successful, friend. I'm sure you're with me, that we would be willing to plow down all of those woods if we were just to build some structure there. I don't know if it's a playground. I don't know if it's a parking lot. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure that you and I would just agree that it would be worth it if one person came to Christ, right? His response is, most pastors just give me an unreasonable figure and tell me to go home. What are you willing to sacrifice for the gospel? How uncomfortable are we willing to get? Giving up our seats, maybe. This pastor said that he had a dream, a vision that they would have 100 new members. And to reflect that, he picked 100 seats in the sanctuary and put traffic cones in those seats so people couldn't sit there. And he said, you can take a traffic cone home when you bring someone to Christ and they're sitting in your seat. I like that idea. I wonder if we could do something like that here. Would we be willing to be sacrificial with the gifts God gives us? Would we be willing to be uncomfortable and to walk over to that neighbor and say, hey friend, do you want to come meet the one who's made all the difference in my life? Would we like to just start living in such a way that the test is before us? Hey, compare my appearance to the appearance of others, and don't you want what I've already found? Isn't there a little bit of Daniel that's rising up within us today? God has a word for you. Blessed are you when people make fun of you because you know the right thing to do and you're willing to do it. For the kingdom of heaven is yours. Do you want the kingdom? Are you willing to embrace the sacrifice? Are you willing to truly live out, there is no greater love than this, that one lay down their life for their friends? I hope this week you have an opportunity to feel a little uncomfortable for Christ. My manager's comments still ring true today. It's not as though we can live a life in the truths in a book. Right? Our response will make all the difference to that question. The praise team is going to come up. They're going to lead us a time of celebration. We're going to have a party here today to remember and to reflect the love that God has for us and our inability to adequately express that and reflect that back to Him. But we're going to do our best to worship and to celebrate and to love. And friends, if you have come today and you are feeling persecuted or burdened, then I want to invite you to join me or a Stephen minister. The Stephen minister will be in the chapel right through those doors. I'll be back in the vestibule back here. We would be glad to come alongside to pray that God would do a wonderful